Hello and welcome back to the one, the only Welsh Watch podcast. Today's episode 12 and international football is finally back. After all that time without international football, the Wales boys are on the scene again. I'm your host Ben Thomas and I'm obviously joined by the usual idiots. One's gone home, so heartbreak for the boys. Anyway, let's just get straight into it, shall we? We'll just talk about the Belgium game first. Obviously, a 3-1 loss to the best team in the world, but there are a lot of positives to take from it. We went 1-0 up with a beautiful goal, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then in the space of 5 minutes, 2-1 behind. Kevin De Bruyne, Thorgan Hazard, and then the second half, chances were wiped away with a Lukaku penalty. So a 3-1, but like I said a minute ago, there are lots of positives to take from this game. First of all, I'll just start off with the goal. Cardiff City's Harry Wilson. Oh, what a goal, especially with the yellow on. I thought we were watching 1980s Brazil. Oh, Tom, you start me off with this. Talk about the goal. Just hype it up for me, please.
I don't think there's words to describe how good of a team goal it was. It's one of those ones where if it had been scored by England, you'd never hear the end of it from the English media. Sky Sports News were on loop for about 4 hours yesterday afternoon. But because it's Wales, it will go a bit under the radar. But that's how we like to do things, I think. Beautiful bit of play. Lovely ball from Bale through to Wilson. Lovely composed finish. And yeah, had us all dreaming for a minute.
Ben, how good was it to see Harry Wilson on the score sheet for Wales? Honestly, oh, what a man. What a beautiful man. Talk me through it.
We saw that he was going to be playing up front and everyone was a little bit like I understand we're getting a rest, but interested in playing Wilson up front, but delivered. I mean, I never really expected a win from Belgium. So, just having the goal as good as that kind of makes up for the fact that we didn't get anything from the game. But I'd say it was one of the best goals we've scored for a long time as part of Wales.
Jack, obviously you just mentioned Ben talking about how Harry Wilson was playing at the top. Were you surprised by the team selection? Personally, for me, I wasn't, because Kiefer Moore has been absolutely shattered. If you watch Cardiff week in, week out, you'll see that he gets tired towards the 60th. And playing week in, week out in club football is just going to knacker him out. But were you surprised by the whole squad selection? Or was it a good selection for you?
On the whole, I wasn't that surprised. I thought it was quite a strong team we put out. And it wasn't anyone which I thought, I didn't expect them to be playing, apart from Wilson being up top, like Ben mentioned. But like you said, keep them all resting him. But yeah, that's the only real shock or just surprise really, seeing Wilson up top. But you saw what he did in the first 10 minutes, got us the good to that goal. And yeah, like all the rest of the boys said, the feeling that we had after that goal, like the goosebumps I had, brilliant. But for the whole team, I think it was a good selection. There was no one that I thought shouldn't have been there, really. Morel was maybe a little bit of a surprise, but I think he had a decent game as well. On the whole, it's a good selection, really.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, one of the players I'm going to come to you about, Lee. One of the major positives on the night was Joe Rodon. Tottenham Hotspur star to come, I say. What did you think of his performance? How class was he at the back, considering he was dealing with such a dangerous front three?
Yeah, he was excellent. I was sort of surprised because in recent weeks he hasn't been playing for Spurs. So to come in straight into the Wales squad and play against, like you said, the best team in the world, against De Bruyne, Mertens, Lukaku, he did very well. And it's a shame that his teammates alongside him made the mistakes that they did, which evidently cost the game. But yeah, very strong performance by Rodon, and that's signs for the future.
Tom, obviously with the strong performance from Joe Rodon, is that his Euros place confirmed? Is he the number one starter in that team, especially at the centre back positions?
For me, as long as he's fit, he's nailed on to be starting at centre back in the summer. And I think the performance that he delivered the other night should potentially show that Jose Mourinho should give him more game time at Tottenham as well. And then playing against that level of player week in, week out in the Premiership in the run-up to the Euros is just going to make him even better.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Personally, I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet. And against such a strong attack from Belgium, I thought it was absolute quality. And hopefully going into the Euros, he's the main starter. Another one that was on fire and took social media by storm was Nico Williams. It's been a big debate between all of us who should start in that position. But Ben, what did you think about Nico's performance the other night?
Well, they had both Connor Roberts and Nico Williams in the team. So that debate was kind of got to their test in the best way. I'd say they both had the game. And although I'd say Connor Roberts had his critics after the game, but Nico Williams, one of our best players on the day, but he was playing I think it was a left wing back position. So he did really well. He was up and down the pitch. He was one of the many people who got a pass into that goal, and he was one of our highlights from that match, I'd say. And I think it does help the debate about which of the two I'd start. I know Connor Roberts is having a much better season, obviously getting a lot more game time, but it's who's doing better for Wales, I think.
Obviously, Jack, you saw both of them playing. You saw Nico and Connor Roberts on the pitch. Is that something we can expect to see more often, or do you reckon this is just like a one-off type of thing? Because obviously, you know they've both got bundles of potential and talent. What do you think?
Personally, I think the whole back four was strong in the full game, although we had a few mistakes. But still, I think obviously Nico Williams shone a little bit more than Roberts, but to see that one on the right, one on the left, I was happy to see that really. And obviously, like you said, with their potential, letting them to both have the chance against such possibly, one of the biggest teams at the moment in the internationals. I thought they played brilliant. And to see them both on the pitch at the same time, one on each side, I'd be really happy to see that, honestly, for the future. Like.
So now we've spoken about the positives of the game. We'll just go on to the negatives, and we'll talk about one mistake that cost us for the game. We won't go into too much detail about any of the others, but that was the Metham penalty giveaway. For me, it was just sloppy. You know, when you're playing against such a quick attack, taking the ball and trying to swing for the fences and swing for the hills inside the box just isn't going to work. And when you've got such dangerous around you, you're always going to give a penalty away. Ben, do you think Metham will be one of the starters in the Euros, or is there somewhere else that you eye up to take a centre-back partnership for Joe Rodon?
It's really close, actually, because at the start, when we first started this podcast, I would have definitely said Metham and Rodon, those were the two. But I'm actually probably going to say Ben Cabango now. I don't think he played in the game the other day, but I think his performances for Swansea this season, he's got some goals. He's done really well for Swansea, having a great season. So, Metham, he's still playing, but he's not had the performances that Cabango has, I'd say. So I think I definitely need to see Cabango in these next two games. I want to see if he can step up into, international level. But I'd say actually for now, Rodon and Cabango.
So Tom, obviously that you've just said what Ben said. Is the lack of game time for Metham at Bournemouth something to take into consideration? Obviously, you see Ben Cabango playing week in, week out, basically 90 minutes at Swansea. Do you think this is something that you have to look at towards the Euros and Cabango might get in ahead of Metham?
It's definitely something to look at. And obviously, another thing that you have to look at is the respective teams' form as well. Swansea are flying pretty high until last weekend, obviously. But Bournemouth haven't been doing as well. They've picked up wins, but there's also been quite a few defeats thrown in there as well. So I think Cabango is pushing, definitely. He's definitely pushing to get in the starting lineup. And I think he definitely deserves his chance to show what he can do. So you know what, Ben? Give him some minutes against Mexico.
We'll come on to that in a minute. But for me, it's got to be Ben Cabango and Joe Rodon at the Euros. I think, like Ben said, that Swansea sort of partnership will work well because obviously they played a lot together and the minutes combining. And South Wales derby. What was the score, boys? What was the score? Go on, Tom.
1-0 Cardiff, mate.
Anyway, we ignore that. So obviously another big negative was Joe Allen. We'll just come straight to you, Jack. Obviously the lookalike on the night. How big of a blow is this that Joe Allen's out for the next two games confirmed?
Yeah, it's a massive blow for us. Definitely. But hey, obviously hopefully it's nothing too big that he'd be out for the Euros, hopefully not. But Obviously, I don't know at the moment, but we got to think that if COVID wasn't in place, he wouldn't be playing in the Euros at all. So you got to think of that as positive. So you couldn't even been playing, right? So, but yeah, talking about it now, it is a massive blow. I'm glad they took him off when they did, so it doesn't, move on to something a bit more serious. But yeah, massive blow for us. That he's not going to be in the next 2 games. But if he is still injured coming to the Euros, Volks, happily slot him in. He can take over where Alan was. But yeah, massive blow for us for the next 2 games.
I think you speak all of our points about Alan. Obviously, you show how sad you are that your lookalike is out for the next 2 games. And it has to be down to that pitch. It was a poor pitch, to be honest. But Ben, your final words on Alan. Not selecting Will Vokes, does that look like more of a mistake now that one of the big name players in that midfield has been injured? Is this a massive mistake to bring 4 goalkeepers, a bundle of centre-backs, and leave Will Vokes out? Is this even more of a mistake now, looking back?
Well, I would have said it was anyway. I don't know why Volks wasn't. I think there must be a specific reason why it wasn't taken. I refuse to believe it was just down to football, like just down to his season as a player. But yeah, Alan obviously came off, and we didn't have Volks to come on. We had, we brought a lot of midfielders, but I just think Volks is above them. So yeah, looking back now, it just makes less and less sense to me.
Yeah, well, we're just going to do a final little thoughts on the match. So we'll score it out of 10 for all of us. I'd say a respectable 7 out of 10, I think, against the best team in the world. I might even say an 8 out of 10. The best team in the world. All the fans were looking into it thinking we're probably going to lose anyway. And to go 1-0 up against Belgium, obviously the best team in the world, I think that's a 8 out of 10. I'm proud of the boys. Some brilliant performances. A few negatives, but overshadowed by the big positives. Tom, what would you give out of 10?
Yeah, as you've said, best team in the world, away from home as well. And I think if it hadn't been for the mistakes, then it could have been a very different result that we saw on the night. So, yeah, probably 8 out of 10 as well.
Jack, what would you give it? 3-1 loss against Belgium. Go on.
Although it's a 3-1 loss, I'm still going to go with probably an 8.5. Because there's a lot of positives to take away from it. And like you boys have said constantly, they are the top team. So coming out 3-1, and there were loads of positives. Second half, I thought we played a lot better. But hey, yeah, I'm going to go in 8.5 and on to Mexico now.
Also, when you think about the big name players that we're missing out, Kiefer Moore, Aaron Ramsey, Joe Allen went off injured. Is it more than an 8.5 for you, Ben?
7 for me. I just think that's a more round number. There's no real reasoning behind it. I just think that 7's a solid number, and I think it was a good performance against the best. So that's 7 for me.
Lee, what do you give out of 10?
The performance was, I'd say, an 8, but because of the mistakes, I got to take it down to a 7.
Yeah. Well, there we are. Those are our thoughts on the Belgium game. Proud of the boys, considering we were playing without some big name players. And it's lovely to see international football back, especially competitive. But next of all, we are going to go on to Saturday night's game, 8 o'clock kickoff at the Cardiff City Stadium, a friendly against Mexico. Let's go. So Wales are looking to bounce back against the 3-1 defeat with Belgium, whereas Mexico takes the field for the first time this year and are undefeated in 10 games. And that strings back since 2019. So they are on absolute fire at the moment. And I've got to be honest, they are a sensational team with a lot of strong players. Obviously, they got Jimenez, but his injury with his head is going to rule him out for this one. But their most dangerous player, in my opinion, is Hirving Lozano. If you play FIFA, you'll know he's dangerous on there, but on the pitch as well. Inter Milan play, very talented. Ben, what do you think? Do you think we're going to struggle against Lozano?
Yeah, definitely. He's very, very good. I mean, I've played a lot of FIFA. I know him very well. So he's a good friend of mine. But no, he's going to be a threat. I think the whole team's strong, to be honest. They've got quite a solid team. It's kind of similar to our team, actually, I'd say. So that's going to be a good game. I can't decide whether it will be lots of goals or very few goals. I'm leaning towards very few, but don't know.
Tom, how much of a threat is this Mexico team? Obviously, it's only a friendly, so it's more about getting some of the youngsters on, get them playing. But do you think this Mexico team could leave Cardiff with a victory?
Potentially. Obviously, you mentioned Lozano there. He is probably their main threat, but they do have a very solid team. And in Ochoa, they have a very solid goalkeeper who has lit up a couple of World Cups recently with some of his performances in matches, specifically Brazil 2014 springs to mind. His performance back then, that was pretty special. But yeah, they're definitely a solid team and be foolish to underestimate them, definitely.
And also, this is their first game of the year, obviously, as I just said, but they have no competitive matches in this little row of games. So they're expecting to put out a strong side, and training at the USW Sport Park, they must be as fit as fleas at the moment. Lee, how solid do you think their team are going to go? Can you expect to see one of their strongest squads apart from Jimenez out?
I think so, yeah. Obviously, you mentioned it's their first game of the year. I don't think they've played since November, so they'll want to see how fit their main stars are. Lozano, if he treats Wales like he treats me on FIFA, we're in big trouble. But yeah, it's going to be a very good game. I think Wales do have the ability to beat Mexico, but like we've all said, we can't underestimate them.
And looking back at our last friendly against the USA, it was a 0-0, but the USA team, they had a strong team. Do you think there are a lot of similarities, Jack, between this USA side, the friendly we played, and this one? Do you think there'll be similarities?
Possibly, but I think the biggest factor is Mexico not playing for the full year. So I think obviously they're just going to straight up put out their strongest team. And I think there's going to be a lot of goals. Obviously, I think we're going to put out more of our youngsters. So it doesn't really look the best for us, in my opinion. I think Mexico will end up, they're going to play their best football. They're going to want to prove something, I guess, being their only game in this run of games, I say. But it's going to be an interesting one. And hopefully it lives up to my word and there's lots of goals. So, yeah, hopefully it's not a stalemate, because I'd be really disappointed.
I would not be surprised if it is a stalemate. But what we're going to do now is talk about the Wales team. Obviously, there's no Aaron Ramsey, Lockyer, Davis, Allen. Most likely no Kiefer Moore as well, because it's a friendly and he's shattered at the moment. So they're probably saving him for Tuesday's game against the Czech Republic. So what we're going to do is we're going to just pick out one player who we think will play, who are like a fringe player. So I'll start. And if you've watched any of the episodes, you know what I'm going to go with. It's obviously Brennan Johnson. You have to play him against Mexico. Although I have petitioned for Luke Jeffcott, unfortunately he didn't make the squad. So for me, Brennan Johnson, hopefully he goes out there and gives Mexico a big scare. Might even get on the score sheet. How do we know? But hopefully he starts. Ben, who do you think out of all the players on the fringe, who would you be the most surprised that come into the squad but deserve it?
Deserve it? Not exactly. I was going to say Tyler Roberts, but I'm actually going to say Dylan Levitt, mainly for the reason that if he's being picked over Volks, then I want to see him play. I want to see a reason why he's being chosen over Volks. So I'd like to see him actually play, and if he does well, fair enough. I'll justifies it. But like, he's playing in Croatia, he needs to be. You need very few minutes played. So he's been picked for a reason. I want to see that reason.
Jack, who do you think? Very good point.
That's a very good point by Ben. And
Thank you.
being proved wrong, I like that. So the player I want to see is Hal Robson-Kanu. I want to see him prove us wrong. I want to see him play and just show why he should be playing for us in the Euros. When he proves us wrong, it's going to be class. Obviously a lot older player, but in my opinion, I think that's what we all want to see is Robson-Kanu. If he's still on his form, why he was chosen. We want to see why he was chosen. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Hal Robson-Kanu. Simple as like.
I agree with both of you lads. To be fair, I'd love to see both of those play, give a chance, and see why they were included. It should be an interesting game. Tom, who do you think out of the whole squad? Who are you picking out to start on Saturday night?
I want to see Rabbi Matondo play.
Why?
We've all seen flashes of what he can do. And I think he's had a bit more game time this season out in Germany. And obviously he's then moved to Stoke, been playing regularly for them. So, yeah, I want to see him start and hopefully sort of throw his name in the mix for a place in the team.
That little winger competition between all of us lads' choices, it's a tight little competition. That Lee, who do you think who you're going with?
I'm going to go with Josh Sheehan. Obviously, he's going to have competition with if Brennan Johnson does play, but I think the pair of them could play in midfield. Why not change it up a bit? Play those two maybe behind Hal Robson-Kanu. Let's see how that works. Change the system a bit. Why not?
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And coming back to you, Lee, Tom King.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I mean, after interviewing him, go back and check it out if you haven't seen that, by the way, everyone. After interviewing him, I can't believe you haven't said him. But obviously, if Sheehan plays, this is a big test for all the youngsters coming through. Rabbi Matondo, Hal Robson-Kanu, although they're not youngsters anymore in a way. Well, Rabbi is, but it's a big test for everyone, and it should be a very interesting game, considering Mexico are going to be given a strong squad in Cardiff. Anyway, let's quickly move on to predictions, and we will end it with predictions. I'll start. I'm going to say a 2-1 Mexico. I'm going 2-1 Mexico with Lozano on the score sheet. Brennan Johnson as well. Kind of boy. Ben, what are you going with?
1-1. It's going to be low scoring. I think it'll be a very dull game, but I think a point would be. Well, I said point. It's not a bit, but I think a draw. I think we'll go 1-1.
Jack, what would you say? Is it going to be a high score, 6-7, like you said?
Hey, I'd love to see a 6-7, but yeah, it's more looking like stalemate. But I think it's going to be a 3-1, and Robson-Kanu, if he's playing, he'll get out goal, right?
All right, we've heard it here first. I'm going Brennan Johnson. You're going Robson-Kanu. Tom, what are you going with?
2-1 Wales. Go on, boys.
Who's on the score sheet for you?
Brennan, and I hope to shut me up after the squad announcement video, Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, he might actually get a game. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him. Lee, round it off. What are you going with? Prediction?
Oh, it's a tough one. I'm leaning towards a high-scoring match, and ever since you mentioned Lozano, I keep thinking of his 97 pace on the FIFA. So I'm going to go with 3-3.
3-3.
Hopefully, I am saying a 1-0 just to show the attack and a strong defence. But that was all for this week of the Welsh Watch. Come back in the next few days where we will be reviewing the Mexico game and previewing the Czech Republic game. So come back for that. Hope you enjoyed all of that and see you next time.